Hello everyone, back again with movie and tune recap. Today, I'm going to explain an American action thriller film from 2025, titled Into the Deep. Spoilers ahead, so watch out and take care. The movie begins in the middle of the ocean, where Ed is enjoying a wonderful time swimming with his 6-year-old daughter, Cassidy. Meanwhile, his wife Nancy is on their boat preparing food. Suddenly, Cassidy feels something brushing against her leg under the water. Panic sets in as she and Ed quickly try to swim back to the boat. Ed manages to lift Cassidy onto the boat, but before he can climb up, a shark bites his leg and drags him underwater. He fights desperately to survive, but the shark's grip is too strong and he is ultimately killed. Years later, Cassidy, who is now an adult, is still haunted by the traumatic memory of her father's death, and she relies on medication to cope with her anxiety. Her husband Greg Branham, who works at a museum in London, comes up with a risky idea: to return to the waters where her trauma began in search of gold rumored to be hidden in an old shipwreck. Despite her fears, Cassidy agrees to face her past and join him on the expedition, a decision that proves to be a terrible mistake. The couple drives to the island and boards a small boat for their diving trip. The boat is captained by Greg's longtime friend, Demon Benz, who introduces them to his first mate, Kai, as well as fellow diver Pierre and his fiancée, Itzera. With their team assembled, they set off on their dangerous adventure. Throughout the trip, Cassidy keeps thinking about memories of her grandfather, Seamus, a marine biologist. She recalls telling him how her life changed after witnessing her father's death and how she has been terrified of the water ever since. Meanwhile, Benz hears a news report about 80 kilos of heroin that were stolen from Indonesian authorities the night before. The report suggests that the drugs might be somewhere in the ocean on the northern side of the island. At the same time, a group of terrorists is searching for the stolen drugs, using a tracker to locate them in the ocean. However, their search is cut short when they run into a band of armed pirates led by a ruthless ex-Navy SEAL named Jordan. The pirates kill the terrorists, steal their tracker, and continue the hunt for the heroin themselves. Back on the boat, Cassidy receives a call from her grandfather, Seamus, who checks in on her, and moments later, the cell phone signal cuts out. Cassidy's mother, Nancy, reassures the worried Seamus that she will be fine diving again, believing it will be good for both her and Greg. However, Cassidy becomes distressed when she sees a shark cage on board. She panics and lashes out, fearing it will be used on their dive. Benz calms her down, explaining that the cage is mainly for making extra money from divers and as a precaution in case of shark activity. After calming down, Cassidy, Greg, Pierre and Itzera put on their diving gear and descend into the ocean to explore the sunken ship. While searching inside, Cassidy and Greg discover gold coins, excited by their find. Meanwhile, Pierre and Itzera are enjoying themselves, with Pierre playfully recording a video of Itzera as she swims. Suddenly, Itzera notices a massive great white shark lurking nearby. Panic sets in and they quickly try to swim back to the boat, but before they can escape, the shark attacks, biting off Pierre's arm. Cassidy and Greg hear the commotion and rush toward them, and realizing the danger, the group frantically swims back to the boat, hauling a severely injured Pierre on board. As they try to figure out how to help Pierre, Benz and Kai spot another boat approaching in the distance. Hoping for help, they plan to transfer Pierre onto the faster boat so he can be rushed to the hospital. However, as the boat gets closer, they realize that it belongs to Jordan, the ex-Navy SEAL pirate. Posing as a concerned sailor, Jordan boards Benz's boat under the pretense of helping Pierre, but unfortunately, Pierre succumbs to his injuries and dies. At that moment, Jordan drops the act and reveals his true intentions, and along with his men, Apache, Chasen, Chucky, and Lo, he takes control of Benz's vessel at gunpoint. The pirates are searching for the smuggled heroin, which was dropped somewhere in the water, and they won't stop until they find it. In an attempt to ease the tension, Cassidy, who is an experienced oceanographer, points out that she weighs less than the pirates who plan to dive for the drugs. She volunteers to descend in the shark cage to retrieve the shipment, hoping to buy some time and keep everyone alive. With no radio for communication, Benz tells Cassidy they will pull her up after 44 minutes. She is then placed in the cage and lowered into the ocean. Upon reaching the location of the smuggled drugs, Cassidy spots two great white sharks circling nearby. She waits until they swim away before cautiously leaving the cage to gather the floating packages of heroin. Just as she secures the drugs to the cage, another shark senses her presence. Cassidy scrambles back inside just in time as the shark begins aggressively attacking the cage. Up on the boat, Benz and the others urgently begin pulling her up. However, as they reel the cage in, one of the sharks tears off a bag of the drugs. A shaken Cassidy finally reaches the surface and is pulled to safety. Furious over the lost drugs, Chasen immediately dives into the water to retrieve the remaining packages still tied to the cage. But before he can return, a shark attacks and kills him. In the chaos, Chucky loses his footing and falls into the water, where another shark quickly takes him as well. Seeing an opportunity, Greg tries to wrestle Jordan's gun away, but Jordan overpowers him, shoving him overboard, and Cassidy begins to cry, assuming her husband is dead. Greg survives the fall and manages to swim to safety, boarding a nearby boat that Jordan had previously abandoned after killing its crew. Meanwhile, Cassidy keeps recalling lessons from her grandfather who taught her to face her fear of sharks and nurtured her love for the ocean. When Jordan threatens to kill her for failing to retrieve all the drugs, Cassidy quickly thinks of a way to buy time. She shows him a gold coin and tells him about the sunken treasure hidden in the shipwreck, and she offers to retrieve it as compensation for the lost drugs. Moment later, Jordan and his crew spots a local Coast Guard boat approaching, and Jordan warns Cassidy to play nice or he will kill everyone. When the Coast Guard crew arrives, Jordan tries to deceive them, but they grow suspicious, and realizing his cover is blown, Jordan orders Apache and Lou to execute the officers. A shootout erupts, leading to an explosion that critically wounds Kai.
You know he's not gonna make it unless we get to shore.
Instead of letting Cassidy dive for the treasure alone, Jordan forces Itzera to go with her. However, once in the water, Itzera begins to panic, overwhelmed by fear, but Cassidy tries her possible best to calm her down. Ignoring Cassidy's warnings, she desperately tries to swim toward the shore, but before she can escape, a shark appears and brutally attacks her. Cassidy watches in horror as Itzera is torn apart, leaving her devastated. Meanwhile, Greg desperately tries to call for help using a walkie-talkie he found in the abandoned boat, but there is no response. He then spots a gun nearby and quickly grabs it before steering the boat away, hoping to find a way to save Cassidy. Back on Benz's boat, Benz attempts to help the critically wounded Kai, but before he can do anything, Jordan mercilessly finishes Kai off with a gunshot. Furious, Benz lunges at Jordan in a fit of rage before making a run for it, and Jordan orders Apache to chase him down. Benz manages to grab a harpoon gun and shoots Apache, causing him to stumble and fall into the water, and before Apache can climb back onto the boat, a swarm of sharks descends on him, tearing him apart. However, as Ben steps onto the deck, he finds himself face to face with Jordan, and without hesitation, Jordan shoots Benz, leaving him to bleed out and die. Meanwhile, deep in the ocean, Cassidy remembers her grandfather's words about facing her fears, and she steadies herself and boldly stands her ground as the massive shark that killed Itzera circles back toward her. After the shark finally swims away, Cassidy seizes the opportunity to return to the boat, ready to confront Jordan over the brutal murders he has committed. Meanwhile, Greg quietly approaches the boat, now armed with the gun he retrieved from the abandoned vessel. As he climbs aboard, he is caught by Lou, leading to a fierce struggle, and the fight ends with Greg managing to stab Lou in the chest, killing him. Just as Jordan holds Cassidy at gunpoint, Greg steps in and orders him to drop his weapon. This leads to a tense standoff between the three of them, and in the chaos, a struggle breaks out. During the fight, Jordan's gun is knocked loose, and Cassidy manages to grab it. Without hesitation, she shoots Jordan in the knee, and seizing the moment, she delivers the final blow, shooting him again and knocking him into the water. Within seconds, a shark emerges, dragging Jordan under and killing him. As the chaos settles, Cassidy and Greg prepare to leave, but they are shocked to discover that Benz is still alive. Greg takes control of Jordan's vessel since their boat is gradually sinking, and safely drives everyone back to shore. 2 weeks later, Cassidy reunites with her grandfather Seamus to assure him she is okay, and the movie concludes. Okay guys, that's all the recap about Into the Deep from 2025. Thanks for watching, see you again in the next video.